Jillian, it's so nice to meet you. So glad to be with you during this incredible and much needed conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Hunter. And it is so nice to meet you as well. I'm very excited to be talking with you today.
For sure, for sure. Um, Adaptive and accessible fashion. We know that the fashion industry has a lot of work to do, like many industries, right?
Yes.
So in this particular sense, this is just to just get us warmed up to the conversation, can you talk a little bit about your experience with the fashion industry, uh, just even from your own personal shopping experience, and how are you able to express your own personal style, and are you able to, right, within the current
Mhm.
structure of the fashion industry?
Sure. To start, I'll explain that I am a physically disabled person. I am a person with dwarfism, which in very simple terms mean I'm just a person of short stature. With my type of dwarfism, I have shorter arms and legs, but an average height torso. And shopping has always been an interesting experience, I'll say. I think that might be the best adjective to start with. I definitely have had an interest in fashion since I was a little girl and have always found like finding clothes that just fit me. Tops are okay, pants, they're going to be too long. And it's hard because you see all your friends like just being able to buy clothes and being able to just without thinking about it and just saying, okay, does this fit? And for me, it's a lot more difficult and it became a lot harder as I try to like find, see solutions to finding a pair of jeans or to find a dress that I needed. And specifically for like special things, when I wanted those special pieces, those were the harder to pieces to find. But even something as basic as a pair of jeans, when I find a pair of jeans that fit, I hold on to them for as long as possible because finding the next pair that fits my body, it's not easy. So I think that's definitely part of it. And then when shopping, you want to like you see the models for inspiration on the runways and magazines, you see the mannequins in the store, and it's 2022 and I still don't see myself represented. So it's hard for me to see what something that I like will look like on my body. Which I think is very important when you're shopping. You want to be able to, before you try something on, because when you get in the fitting room, when you get in the front of the mirror, it can be a very hard place to be in emotionally. So you want to kind of like have that idea of what it will look like, and I'm not given that opportunity.
That makes a lot of sense, and in and of itself, I think um, there is a percentage of our populations that just either loves to shop and hates to shop because
Hmm.
of accessibility issues. And we want to look good and we want to feel good. And it's another way of expressing ourselves in a variety of ways to find this in 2022, almost 2023, and still not being in a position of being accessible and being considered and thought of.
Hmm.
It's really outrageous. What do you think from your experiences and your knowledge base should be some considerations that the fashion industry should really be taking um, on at this point? What should that look like? What would be a good beginning for them?
I think there are some brands. Tommy Hilfiger does come to mind that has developed and is continuing to develop adaptive lines, which is fantastic to see that on the runways. I do think that other brands need to be following that example, whether it including from high fashion to the more commercial, more accessible fashion in terms of price, because the disabled population, it's the world's largest minority. It's the only minority anyone can join, and so it's hard. They're leaving out a huge customer base that fashion impacts everyone. We all have to get dressed in the morning. So I think to start by bringing disabled people in, just even as just consultants to start, to say, okay, what do we need, and recognize that disability is incredibly diverse, and that what I need is different from person in a wheelchair needs versus what someone who's neurodivergent or with a limb difference. But just start by listening and really like just trying. I think that there might be, and this, me seeing it like a fear to try. And I think that you definitely need to start trying and seeing what works and what doesn't, because if for me, speaking for myself, if I see a model and I see something that's designed for someone like me, I'm going to try it and see if it works on my body. I'm going to see if it works. So I think that there needs to be more bringing in disabled people into the conversations in fashion when designing new clothes and seeing, okay, what do they need? And then let's try and come up with solutions.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes brands do kind of create a certain loyalty, right, and a
Yes.
following for folks, and it's like, oh, so who is daring to think about the largest underrepresented group of
Mm-hmm.
folks, and who would they be? Now, did you mention Tommy Hilfiger as being one of the
Yes.
designers?
Yes. So they have a Tommy adaptive line, which does have clothes that do look like Tommy Hilfiger. Like they're not changing necessarily their aesthetic, but they are coming with adaptations so that people with certain disabilities can get into them.
That's interesting. Do you have an idea about how they, like, some things that around product design and testing processes that they might be doing to engage folks in the community, or that they should be considering in general?
I think that they're definitely bringing people in to have these conversations. I think one thing that I kind of came to me relatively recently that I didn't think about is with adaptive design or with fashion in general, you want something to be fashionable and functional. And I think sometimes it gets lost of like with the function, even what someone like I need in order to be able to function in it is different than what someone in a wheelchair needs, is different what someone with limb difference needs. And so it would be interesting to see, because like even in Tommy Adaptive, they don't have, to the best of my knowledge, clothing available for a little person. So I think it would be interesting to start seeing, and I think like these needs to happen of like, okay, we need to address the other disabilities and recognize that it's not necessarily just about being able to get into them independently, that it's being able to walk around in them comfortably and to, feel confident in the clothing. Like that's part of the function of clothes as well.
Right, right. I mean, I can see that that would be functioning through a lens of like fit, and then not
Hmm.
thinking about, we also want to look sexy, and we want to look
Right,
beautiful, and we want to look hip, all of these things, right? Like it's just,
right.
there's a little bit of a tunnel vision attached to it.
Yeah, and it's hard because I get like these are the brands are starting, but I do think it's something that, and it's something that I didn't necessarily realize until recently, that we have to think about with, with the designing for people with disabilities, that it's not necessarily for certain types of disabilities just being able to get dressed independently and then they're okay. It's being able to walk around and if just something is the right length for me, if it's time to be the right length, it doesn't necessarily mean I can still walk in it.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is a great point, and that is something that needs to continue to be unpacked
Hmm.
and address for sure. If folks who are joining us, I just wanted to make sure I reach out, have any questions for Jillian, feel free to drop them on the chat and be happy to engage you in the conversation as well. In the meantime, I'll just keep asking questions, because I think that
Yeah.
this is such a critical and necessary conversation to be had, but please feel free to ask any questions. As we know, with the fashion industry, advertising is such a big thing for them, right?
Hmm.
From magazines and so forth. In the work that you have been doing, and those that that are doing advocacy on the front lines, any sense about how these brands are in any way starting to show some signs in their advertisements around some consciousness of different bodies, and when it comes to their adaptive fashion?
There have been some brands doing it in terms of like actually putting then disabled models in their marketing materials. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not seeing as much as I'm seeing in movements, around body diversity when it comes to like plus size or different races, different ethnicities, different other like marginalized communities. I feel like they're kind of being more represented. Disability is not quite there yet. I do think that there are some brands, and it's interesting because like Disability Pride Month was last month, and there really wasn't so much celebration about it in terms of brands marketing it, brands having a campaign, brands just celebrating it. There was a brand, it was a cosmetics company, Maybelline did have a campaign where it did feature all disabled models. And even seeing that representation, it wasn't fashion, but it was still in that in the beauty industry. But that's something that, you know, for me watching it was somewhat groundbreaking because I hadn't seen it. And as a little person, it's hard because like I'm still, you know, in terms of disability, I'm seeing people in wheelchairs, I'm seeing people with limb differences. I'm still not necessarily seeing little people. So it's hard because they want to celebrate, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm still not there. And again, that kind of exemplifies the fact that disability is incredibly diverse. But I think it would, you know, again, as they're developing these lines, and to the best of my knowledge, like I've never seen a Tommy Adaptive ad in Vogue. Like I would love to see that, because that would be them showcasing their adaptive line in a major magazine, probably one of, if not the major magazine in the world, one of them certainly. And, you know, see them putting that time and attention to their adaptive line as they do to their main line, and seeing them woven into their main runways rather than having something separate for them.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple questions from the audience. First question I have is for all of the designers out there. What are some things that we should look out for while designing clothes for neurodivergent folks?
I'm going to say I'm not like the full on fashion expert. I do know one, to bring those people in the community in, and they will be able to tell you better than I can. I do know for them, it's probably more sensory and making with certain fabrics. And also, I guess with the closures as well. But again, I'm not an expert, so I can't speak fully to that community. What I would say is to bring members of those community in and talk to them and really listen and see what do they need, what do they need when they get dressed in the morning, what is comfortable for them, and what are they looking for. But as far as I know it's more like sensory with the fabrics and like the closures.
The other question that we have is, have you seen any efforts to mainstream fashion for people in wheelchairs, particularly women?
I would say yes. I would say in terms of bringing in disability to fashion, I think the person in the wheelchair is certainly the most represented. One of my best friends here in New York is a wheelchair user and a disabled model, and she has, you know, been in many. She's been, I believe, she was in an UGG campaign. She's worked with other brands. She was on Project Runway as one of the models. She was in the finale for one of the designers there, who specifically wanted to dress a model in the wheelchair and have that inclusion. So I've definitely seen it, and there are other models out there. She's just first one that comes to mind because she is one of my best friends. But I think definitely that there's, in bringing disability into fashion, the person in the wheelchair, particularly women, is definitely, it's happening.
How, from an action-oriented piece, what is our call to action for our allies, for folks that are out there in the community that are looking to be in community with others and really mobilize about the fashion and accessibility in adaptive fashion? What's out there for them? Are they particular groups? Are they activists? Like, what does it look like?
I think it's very individual right now. I know, do you know there are some modeling agencies like the one my friend works with that does focus, like makes priority of representing disabled models and getting them the opportunities. For me, it's using my personal platforms that I've created for myself, my social media, as well as my blog, my podcast, to advocate for it and to have conversations with people. I think it's for the community, again, it might be a little more individual to what you're comfortable with, but the community is incredibly powerful, incredibly supportive of one another. So if there's something that you're advocating for, reach out in the community and someone will more often than not have your back in helping you support it. But I think pointing out to brands that we are here, I think that, and I think social media is a powerful microphone, and to see, you know, people trying on and seeing how they can't get into things, or seeing them want to see that representation. We've seen it on Instagram. I'd say certainly with the body positivity movement, brands have been listening and taking in their feedback, and are working with these influencers to design lines and to make sure that there is more inclusion on the runways in terms of body diversity, in terms of size. So I think the disabled community does need to follow that example, and there are people doing it, but I think there needs to be more to really say, we're here, we are the world's largest minority, we get dressed every day just like anybody else, and we want to be seen in the fashion industry, and we want to have clothes designed for us too.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. I look forward for people being able to check, you out on social
Mhm.
media and many others. I think it's pretty powerful to get connected. There's many ways in which social media can be incredibly overwhelming, and then ways in which
Yes.
social media can be such an amazing place and a place of connectedness with
Mhm.
folks to really learn new things, and also kind of knowing kind of where additional spaces that you can really feel honored and loved and encouraged to continue to do some of this amazing work. We have I think a little comment from someone saying that I did see the Project Runway and almost cried because it was the first time I saw someone like me on the runway.
Oh, I'm gonna tell my friend that you said that. That will make her day, make her world. And yeah, like it's seeing that representation. Representation is so powerful, And for me, as a disabled person, just seeing that little bit of representation while I'm not a person in a wheelchair, it was a moment for me because so often, and on shows like Project Runway that I've been watching from the beginning, and it took them 18 seasons to have any type of disability
Yeah,
representation.
yeah.
And it was a little bit of representation, but it was still something. And, with watching with future seasons, hopefully, I'm hoping it's not going to go off the air anytime soon. But like, I don't want to see them take a step back and to say, okay, we did it. Like, that's not enough. So I think they need to say, okay, how can we weave disability into the fabric of this show more? The way that they, again, weaved in having different sizes of models, having models of different sexualities. They certainly have models of different ethnicities and different races and come from different backgrounds. And, see like disability is still like is still not being, they brought it in, but now they need to keep going.
Mhm, mhm. Right, like it gave us a little view, and
Yes.
we get so excited when we finally see someone from the community, right? Like there's
Hmm.
this spark of light that maybe this is the opening, and the many, to come along the way, that which be super powerful. So definitely. And Project Runway, even though it's been around as long as it still has a lot of power in providing an example about what are the latest trends that people are seeing, who are the upcoming talent that they're
Hmm.
seeing, and what are the populations that they're really centering and paying attention to, or not, right?
Exactly. And and I say, like, if they can do, they had a challenge before the finale where they also had this, they had Paralympians. And I think they might have been, max are given 2 days to design an outfit for them. And this was for, I believe, the closing ceremonies of the Paralympics. 2 days they had to do it. So if seeing that, if the industry and seeing some of the looks that they came out with, if the designers can do it in 2 days, imagine what they can do with what brands can do with a full team with much longer timelines. Imagine what they can do to the disabled community. So I feel like if you can say, we did it on Project Runway with such limited constraints, now we have like there's no excuse almost.
Right, because it shows that we are fully capable, right,
Hmm.
as communities, to in very thoughtful ways. And imagine what it can happen if, then we bring in people from the communities for feedback, for thought, to ensure
Right.
that we're doing this genuinely with not just a practicality piece, but the sexiness attached, the wanting to
Hmm.
look fabulous, so that, while I personally might not want to necessarily be a model, that there will be others that's what they want to do. And that's a way in
Right.
which they would want to help represent and bring attention to the community.
Exactly. Representation is so important. You've seen like what, like with seeing different ethnicities being represented, and you've seen that power of like little kids seeing their superheroes now and saying like, oh, I can be like that one day. They're little girls like me who wanted to be a model at one point in her life, or wanted to be in fashion but never saw herself, and is still wanting to see herself there. So like that is, representation is so powerful, how it influences us.
That is so very powerful. If you had an opportunity to speak to a particular designer, is there one person that you're just like would love to just sit down and have a conversation with? And what would you say?
Oh, that's tough. That might be the toughest question you've asked me yet. If I could pick one person, okay. Um, I because I mentioned it and because I at least see that they're starting, I would love to talk with Tommy Hilfiger. Want to know what really inspired him to say, okay, I'm going to do it. And to, to say, like, he did take a risk by doing it because nobody was doing it then. And it was such a powerful brand. But then, say, what's next? Like, why are we not seeing Tommy Adaptive just woven into your shows? Why aren't we seeing, campaigns in Vogue, in Elle, in Harper's Bazaar with disabled models, and not like as a separate advertising? Like, why can't they just be woven into your regular editorials? When will we see other types of disability being there? Because there are so many. So I would love to talk to him and just say, like, where are you going next? And I think I really want to ask that question to a lot of designers and say, where are you going next? Designers like one who I champion is from Project Runway is Christian Siriano, who I love and have loved since he first graced my television screen for his personality and his designs. And he's also very inclusive of different sizes. And I want to say to him, okay, bring this passion that you have to having different sizes on your runway to disability. Because it's imagine, like, just visualizing that kind of runway show would be like beyond anything that's ever happened in fashion. So I'd love to talk to him too and say, you celebrate other bodies. I know with there was this, I can't remember her name, but she said that, like, no one will design for her, and because she was plus size, and he said, I got you, I'm here, let me, like, come to me, I will design for you. And he did it. And so, like, I would love to see him bring that energy to the disabled community.
Yes. People, yes. So in case there's any other question, I have a question for you and we're going to talk about it. What's your style? Like, what's your favorite piece of fashion that you're just like, I love?
I've gone through phases. If you looked back at my old Facebook photos, you will see many different phases of my fashion. And I think over time, it's definitely, I try to stay more like classic and try to find the more timeless pieces, but I love to have fun, find pieces with drama. I'm now, like, my favorite thing right now is like things with like an open back. I'm loving that look on fashion right now, and like trying to have more fun again because I try to stay like very like, also recognizing that if it's simpler, like for a pair of jeans, if it's simple, if I cut it off, I'm not losing anything in the design. But now it's kind of like taking more chances and showing off my body more, which is something I wasn't necessarily comfortable doing, in part because I didn't see it in fashion. But now I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to show it. I'm going to show it, and other people are going to see it.
I look good. I look good.
Exactly. And I'm like, why am I, like, this is my body. Why am I trying to hide it just because the industry doesn't necessarily want to embrace it yet? Right. If I start embracing it, maybe other people will take notice and say, oh, we should start embracing this type of body. So I've definitely been more daring and like showing different parts of my body, and I'm really liking how I feel doing that. Favorite designer, I wish I could, if I could, I would wear every day, is Alexander McQueen. I am obsessed with Alexander McQueen. True, just king in the fashion industry. But I love fashion. I love fashion for, like, I remember when I first watched Project Runway, like, it was an episode they were designing uniforms for like the U.S. Postal Service. I was watching in my parents' bedroom. I stumbled upon it and I was like, what is this show? I need to be watching it. I couldn't have been, I was maybe 10 years old. But again, like, I think, I love reading the magazines and seeing what's coming next, and then envisioning, and like where I started my blog was like imagining Oscar gowns, if they were altered, what would it look like? So I love doing that. So
I love it. I love it, but we needed to, right? I mean, so now we know. So I think we should open to those who are with us to let us know a little bit about what's their favorite part of fashion, what are they obsessed with, that they love, right? Because there's something to be said about the cause of what we're trying to push forward. And also we get to be human, and we get to want to look good and love, our favorite parts of different things, like your open back and kind of what that journey has been, right? So we'll leave it open in case others that are with us would like to share a little bit about what's their little piece of fashion that they're obsessed with, that they love, and or the latest, part of the fashion that they're embracing today. Yeah, let's see if anybody just lets us know. So we'll give them just a minute. to do that. But thank you so much for sharing. I think that with this one, some critical learning and insights that come into the work. And also we get to play with things that we love and that we're
Mhm.
excited about, because the community is so vibrant and so awesome. And um, it's just important to center, all of that, the things that we enjoy so much and we get super excited and pumped about.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having this conversation. Again, so important. This is an industry that no matter what your style is, it affects everyone. And it's conversations like this that are going to change not just the fashion industry, but other industries as well. And giving disabled voices a platform to be heard is so
Mhm.
important. So
It is
thank you
so
for doing this.
Absolutely. Jillian, it's such a pleasure. And I just want to invite everybody who's with us to make sure that you are following Jillian and all things social media and the podcast. Can you remind us the name of your podcast, please?
Sure. The podcast is Always Looking Up. It is a space for little people, for disabled people, and allies to talk about living in a world that is not necessarily designed for them. And it is available where you listen to all your other favorite podcasts. I also do have a blog where I do make the transcriptions available. We are going back and transcribing past episodes, but present episodes are being transcribed as well. And that is JillianAlana.com, JILLIANILANA.com. And you can follow me at Jill_Alana on Instagram, as well as a podcast, Always Looking Up, all one word, .podcast.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jillian. I'm so excited to see I'm going to see you all over the place doing some incredible
Thank
things. So know
you.
that we're already super proud and very excited for you. And thank you for giving voice to such an important conversation today. And as we're getting ready to wrap up, I'll bring Hunter over and then we'll be ready to wrap up our time. Thanks, Jillian.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure
Mhm.
talking with you.
Same.